What was food like in my household?
What was food like growing up?
And how has it changed?
Your food that's kept your family going.
Remembering rationing, you can't forget it.
Now, you're going to have to hear this one hard, right?
Okay.
Welcome back to No Ordinary Life, where ordinary people like Gavin,
Okay.
Julie, Anne, Andy,
Push that back.
April,
Okay.
Susanna,
It's really funny.
Spencer, Sarah, and B
I'm just painting pictures.
talk about their extraordinary lives.
What was food like growing up?
Right.
What was food like when I was growing up and how has it changed?
For me, growing up with food.
What was food like in my household? Okay.
Now, you're going to have to hear this one hard, right?
When I was growing up, food was...
Food is a cultural language.
We sort of eat typical sort of northern meals.
My dad from Jamaica, so traditional Jamaican dishes.
Because they can take your religion, they can take your name, they can take your country.
Curry goat, rice and peas.
My parents still had the post-war mentality where you couldn't waste anything.
But they can't take your food now. Yeah? Your food that's kept your family going have got recipes that may go back thousands of years.
Leave a comment below.
Because my dad was a butcher,
And the images that I'm going to give you,
Oxtail, rice and peas.
we'd always have a lot of meat.
images of mums with them big forks.
My parents were vegetarian and there wasn't a lot of option.
Curry chicken, white rice.
There wouldn't be necessarily much fruit and vegetables in the house.
Digging up pigtails in Brixton Market.
But they grew a lot of their own vegetables.
We'd always have meat, so we'd have
Roast chicken. We always had a roast on a Sunday.
corned beef and roast ham.
Or cooking cow feet and
Dried bags of TVP, which was textured vegetable protein.
some lady pulling out a piece of tripe.
Or something with potatoes.
We always sat down as a family.
My mum would make everything from scratch.
Or something with some veg, you know.
So we ate really well.
Just sitting down at a table with your family and eating,
Quite interesting that other people didn't eat like that.
which was probably the best thing ever.
What was food like and how has food changed in my lifetime?
I think food change in Thailand is really...
I remember when I was growing up, my mother cooking meat and 3 veg for every meal.
It's really big change.
Remember in the 90s that
It's more international food in Thailand, every corner.
that changed for her. She started cooking stir fries. She started cooking
Like if you're in the city.
fried rice. She started cooking things with a lot of Asian influence. And that
Like we influence.
reflected the immigrant population that was coming to New Zealand. We started in the 90s.
Food,
I remember eating a lot of sushi when I was in my early 20s.
fashions,
But sushi then in New Zealand was
products.
chicken wrapped in rice, wrapped in seaweed.
Very, very fast.
Raw fish was still very exotic then.
Yeah, like in my time,
I went back to New Zealand a year ago.
not many
Every second restaurant is a Japanese restaurant in Christchurch.
Indian or Japanese.
They have their own special, unique dishes that you'll only see in New Zealand.
But now it's just everywhere.
The way that they do tonkatsu is very different to how you'd have it here or how you'd have it in Japan.
Stay tuned.
In Brixton Market, it's got to be the Harrods of food.
Being vegetarians, we were seen as quite odd.
If you see an old lady fondling this fruit, right?
I remember aniseed balls. They were my favourite. Aniseed balls, gobstoppers.
There were certain foods that you only had at a certain time of the year.
My parents never thought to explain that you don't eat meat. And
I do feel that awful lot of people
Ask her.
have forgotten how to...
The conversation continues.
Looking back on it,
with our dietary lifestyles
we weren't really educated with regards to food
in the 70s, 80s,
as we are now.
being vegetarians, we were seen as quite odd.
We were probably eating a far healthier diet then than now,
I'd go to friends' houses, they wouldn't understand.
because a lot of it was fresh.
I didn't understand myself that I was vegetarian. That was just the way things were. We didn't eat meat.
It was a question of always having meat and 2 veg.
My parents never thought to explain that you don't eat meat and this is why you don't eat meat.
For me, food is
During the 70s,
in Brixton Market has got to be like it's got to be the Harrods of food
this idea of having ready meals came up.
because there's every single possible type of cuisine that you can imagine.
Supermarkets and Marks and Spencer's
And don't be afraid
did some superb
to ask if you see something you don't know how to cook it.
meals which were ready cooked.
If you see an old lady,
And then, of course, microwaves came into fashion.
an old lady, mind you,
Obviously, I was living away from home by then.
if you see an old lady fondling this fruit, right,
It became more
ask her.
acceptable to have ready cooked meals.
Say to her, how do you prepare that?
With the advent of takeaways,
And she will willingly impart all of her knowledge,
I do feel that an awful lot of people
all of the different ways that you could do it.
have forgotten how to actually cook.
Leave your story below.
What was food like back then?
How has food changed in my lifetime?
In England, at the boarding school,
There's a lot more food now
it was porridge,
than there was in my youth,
an egg once a week, in spite of having chickens.
and there's a lot more diversity.
We used to be given things like tripe.
I can remember the first Chinese restaurant opening in Swansea.
I hated meat. In fact, I went vegetarian for a while.
My parents taken me there as a child.
Mincemeat I can't stand to this day, or sago pudding.
Clearly wasn't very adventurous because I don't think I had Chinese food. I think I had English food.
We used to get sort of sponge cakes with custard over, lumpy custard.
But I do remember I had lychees.
Put me off custard for life.
Of course, then there were no Indian restaurants.
And then, of course, in America, the food was...
Then I think the Chinese restaurants came first and the Indian restaurants came shortly after.
You know, hamburgers, hot dogs, which everybody loved.
No, there wasn't the diversity of food that there is now.
I just remember eating really well, you know.
I will say this to you.
Everybody had a Sunday roast.
Being born in the 1900s,
Tended to be beef because I think
kind of cobblestones till now,
beef wasn't terribly expensive then,
food has changed dramatically.
whereas chicken was.
The choice,
There were certain foods that you only had at a certain time of the year.
the choice.
Pomegranates,
You have no idea, kids, yeah?
I think Christmas time or maybe autumn.
We used to have bourbon,
Maybe pomegranates were Guy Fawkes time.
custard creams, bourbon biscuits and rich tea,
Dates and figs at Christmas,
and the malted milk. There you go.
but no other time of the year. Nuts at Christmas, but no other time of the year.
And that was it.
Now, of course, with globalization, food's available all the time.
Cookies,
Nobody had
you're having a bubble, yeah?
spaghetti bolognese for tea.
So food
So there's a lot more food now. The food was scarcer then.
has gone exponential. When you walk into a supermarket,
It was much more traditional. It was much more British, I suppose.
you have no idea of how much variety you have.
Don't forget to like, share and subscribe.
Oh, God, yes. Oh, yeah.
I used to love my cereal.
Remembering rationing, you can't forget it.
So I'd have like 4 bowls of cereal a day
We had ration books.
in a fruit bowl to make sure that I could get enough in there.
The food rationing, I mean, they were all taken by the kitchen, of course.
So I'd have this big glass fruit bowl with
The only one that really had any impact on us was the sweet rationing.
Rice Krispies, a full pint of milk on there, and 2 big heaped dessert spoons of sugar on top of it.
You had your sweets rationed.
And I'd have that for morning.
I remember aniseed balls. They were my favourite. Aniseed balls, gobstoppers.
First thing in the morning before school,
Crunchy bars,
I'd have it as soon as I got home from school.
jelly beans,
And then have my dinner in the evening,
dolly mixture things.
and then a bowl of cereal before I went to bed at night.
Sherbet dip, that was another one, lovely.
So cereal was always my thing, but
Sherbet dip with the licorice pipe, and you sucked the sherbet up and it hit the back of your throat and you went like that.
yeah, there obviously wasn't as much choice as there is now.
Next time.
What would it like to be a teenager in the 1960s?
What was it like being a teenager back in the day in Lewisham?
What was it like in the 60s, 50s?
What was it like to be a teenager in New Zealand?
In Macclesfield,
Being a teenager was difficult.
When they were all in bed, I used to get dressed,
The police cars came and screeched around me.
sometimes in mother's clothes.
They come And I thought, God, the Sweeney, remember the Sweeney?
Particularly the areas in South Wales where we'd had the mines closed.
I was just like, what?
We go to the Hammersmith Palais dancing.
And I realised in that moment that every other person.
No Ordinary Life. Thank you for watching.
If someone asked me if I had faith, I'll tell them, yes, I do have faith. And if they ask me if it's important, of course it's important. It's important because it's foundation.
Subscribe to keep the conversation going. And don't forget to ring the bell.